Alright guys, welcome back. This is lesson 58, lines with special slopes. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by graphing these two equations on the same set of axes, and we're going to do some observing. I'm going to start with this first equation. Is my whiteboard working? No, maybe. Definitely not. Why not? I don't know. Let's try to plug it in again. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Makes that magical sound, which means it's working. Alright, so let's start with this first one. Let's use red. So the first one is NY= form. So my slope is 2 over 1. My y-intercept is -4. So I'm going to start at, begin at -4, and go up 2 and to the right 1 for +2 slope. I'm going to do this kind of carefully. It's very small on my screen, but you guys could probably do it much more carefully at home. And if I want to go in the opposite direction, I'd go down 2 and to the left 1, and so on and so on. Oops, one more. Down 2 and to the left 1. Alright, got it all the way across. And I'm not going to try to draw that line because it's going to be super sloppy. Alright, now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to change colors. I'm going to do the second line. The second line is not in y= form, so I have to end up, again, we want our lines when we're graphing into y = mx plus b form. That's super important when graphing. So I have to change this. Since I want the y by itself, I got to get rid of this -3. So I'm going to just do +3 on both sides. And now it says y = 2x plus 3. That's not too bad. And now I can find my slope and my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 3, so I'm going to start with +3, and then the same slope. So I'm going to move up 2 and to the right 1, up 2 and to the right 1, up 2 and to the right 1. I guess I kind of just made an observation. I'm looking at the right side of my screen and knowing that I have to make an observation about what I'm seeing. And there we go. That's as far as I can go. So it looks like they both have the same slopes, but I also know they have different they had the same slopes, but they have different, let's see, did you pick it right? Y-intercepts. Now we call this something. When the lines look like this, we call that something. And I'm going to ask you if you think you have a word for that. When the lines look like this, lines look like this, it's called blank. Let's see if you can fill in that blank for me, and then we'll bring that up when we talk in class. Alright, let's look at the other example. And again, if you have the opportunity, if you have a ruler at home, you could draw those lines in. Actually, I'm being a very bad teacher right now. I should have not only drawn the lines in, but then also labeled the lines. Because typically when we graph two lines, we always label them. And this other line would be y = 2x minus 4. Again, I'm doing it in different colors so you can see it. Notice when I use the purpley blue color, I labeled it with the original equation, not the one that I solved for. Alright, so now let's look at the other example. Alright, so second half, again, I'm looking to see if the equations are in y = mx plus b form, and they are. So for the first one, my slope is 3, so that's 3 over 1. My y-intercept is 4. Again, when you're graphing, this is the kind of work you would have to show. The second graph actually is also in y = form. My slope this time is -1/3. Y-intercept is -2. Alright, so let's start graphing. Let's graph that first one. Begin at 4, up 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. And then I'm going to go down 3 to the left 1. Down 3 to the left 1. And I can't fit anymore. Alright, so there's my first line. Again, I should label it. Let's wait until I draw both of them. That way I don't label over the other one. The other one starts at -2. but this slope is down 1 and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3, a negative slope. Down 1 to the right 3. And then the other direction would be up 1 and to the left 3. So just complete opposites. And there we go. Interesting. Very different this time. So let's label this guy negative 1/3 x minus 2, and the other guy y equals 3x plus 4. So what are we noticing? Well, I noticed that this time, as opposed to last time, the lines cross. Let's talk about slope and y-intercept like we did before. They have different, sorry my F's are not coming down, different slopes and different y-intercepts. Now there's something unique about the slopes, and they're crossing at a very particular way. So when they cross, these lines cross, they actually form a right angle. And that's another word that we're going to learn today. So when lines cross and they form a right angle, the lines are called, and we're going to talk about that word in class. But there's something unique about their slopes, and that's what makes that happen. So my slope of my first line is 3/1, and then notice my slope of my second line is -1/3. So they're kind of like related in a way. What happens is I took this first slope and I flipped it upside down. So we call that the reciprocal. And then I made it negative. So it's the, we would call that the inverse, right? So it's a multiplicative inverse of that. So it's negative, we're going to use the word negative reciprocal. Negative because the sign switches, not necessarily becomes negative, but switches. And reciprocal is a fancy word that says it flips. So it flips upside down. And that's about it. So make sure you have your graphs nicely graphed and labeled. If you have a ruler, draw the line and make the arrows at the ends like we normally would do. Obviously, me drawing on a keypad would be much more challenging to do than you guys would do on paper at home. And then we'll talk about these two vocab words and what lines mean when they don't touch, and what's the term for lines that cross exactly at a right angle. All right, guys, I'll see you in class.